You are tuned to Anywhere the Needle Drops. I am your host, Justin Flegel, and this is the show where we're exploring and elevating the local music, culture, and arts. Not just local, regional, and beyond. And today we are going way, way beyond. We sit down with Robert Connely Farr, blues musician who he's from Mississippi, though he's based in Vancouver right now. In fact, we talk about that journey, how Mr. Farr went from Mississippi, not really knowing his local blues history, went, and as he says, about as far west as you can go, and he took a right and headed north. And it's a fun story. He'll talk all about that and how, even though he was in Vancouver, he discovered right where he grew up this beautiful history of the Bentonia Blues sound. So definitely cool stuff there. He and I also discover our mutual love of the Drive-By Truckers. That was pretty fun. So all around a good time here chatting with Mr. Robert Connely Farr. Such a fun time talking to him. Before we get to that interview, though, we've got a song for you from his latest album, which you can get on Bandcamp right now. As I always say, give artists your money. Head on over to Bandcamp. In the show notes, you'll find that link. Buy that album. Buy some more albums. Give Mr. Robert Connely Farr some of your money. You're going to hear the song Getting Tired of Getting Old from that newest album, Pandora Sessions. The interview starts after. Thank you. Here's to life.
I guess I got to now.
Okay. I think we are in good shape.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right. So, hey, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. This is, I was turned on to your music by Charles Nelson, a friend of mine who
Oh yeah.
caught you. I think it was at the Bentonia Music Festival, maybe. Is that?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. He came down to Bentonia and I met him there. Yeah, he took some great photographs as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, I would hope so. It is what he does for a living. So, if his photos weren't on par, then he'd have a problem. So,
No, I was really impressed, and it was nice chatting with him since then. And I think he might have written a review, maybe. I'm not sure.
oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, he's
Or it was a podcast. I can't remember. There was anyway. Yeah, I've enjoyed meeting him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's the one that turned me on to your music, and then I love some of it. So we put a couple of tunes on at least one of our mixtapes that we release each week, and so
That's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's good to have you here. So, but you're in Canada now, is that correct?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
I've been in Vancouver. This year is 17 years.
Oh wow. Okay. So how did you end up in Vancouver from Mississippi?
Well, I guess a few years before I moved up here, let's see, around 2001, I went to study architecture at Auburn University in Alabama. And while I was there, I ended up doing some nonprofit work with a design build school. And when I finished that project, I took a weekend or a week to see a buddy up in the University of Washington in Seattle. And man, I got a wild hair while I was up there and drove up here to get some Cuban cigars. And I was blown away by the city. I was just like literally in and out of the city, but I was just like, what is this place? And so I came back up and ended up meeting some people, and that was all she wrote, man. Like, I just saved my money for a few months, and man, I tell people that I drove west to LA and I took a right and I went about as far as you could go. Which is the truth now.
Yeah. Well, that's not the normal direction people go when they're heading out west as musicians, but that's
Right.
that's a way to go. I like it.
It's funny. I remember being a kid with, I don't know what it was like with you, but I remember early on music hit me like it hit me different than I think it hit other people. And I got obsessed with music, and me and my brother and my cousin, we go out to the country on the weekends and we listen to Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue and Metallica, just anything we could find that my parents didn't like. And when we were one day, and I found this, we hid this little note behind a picture in my papa's old house out in the country, which is falling in now. But we wrote a letter that said when we got old enough, and we were going to all move out to Los Angeles and live on the Sunset Strip and have a rock and roll band. And we signed it in blood. And I think I'm the only one out of the three of us that made it out west and has a rock and roll band.
That's excellent. So you're listening to a couple of bands you rattled off there, kind of rebelling against your parents, it sounds like. But were you influenced or listening to anything that your parents did like? Was there anything in their collection that just kind of maybe even secretly, was speaking to you?
Well, at that time, it's interesting. Like, I was just talking with my dad about it. Like, I mean, there wasn't really a lot of music in my family when I was a child. And I guess the most music that we experienced in the church. I grew up in a Methodist church in Mississippi. And, so it was really like hymns and Christmas songs and things like that. My mom, she had a few records from when she was younger, but I don't think that music hit her and my dad like it hit me when I was a kid. Like, I remember to this day, I remember riding around in the country as a kid listening to Casey Kasem's Top 40 Country Countdown, and like as long as I could remember, that was playing on the radio when we were growing up out in the country. But, now looking back on it, yeah, I definitely like some music that my mom liked, when she was younger. But it just like music for me was like this thing that I found. Like I didn't even know a lot about the blues music. And I literally grew up in Bolton, Mississippi. And that's where Charlie Patton was born, Sam Chapman, Walter Vincent, Bo Carter. Like arguably the Delta Blues started right there where I grew up in Hinds County, and I didn't know shit about it.
So how did you find your way to it then? If it didn't speak to you as a kid, what brought you back to it?
Well, I mean, like I said, not that it didn't speak to me, I just didn't know about it. Like, I mean, I grew up playing in the yard of the home that the Chapmans were born. But we saw the blues trail markers, but it wasn't until I moved up here, and then people were like, "Oh, you're from Mississippi, and what do you think about the blues?" And and I played music. When I moved up here, I started writing songs and got a little alt country and roots band. We called ourselves Mississippi Live and the Dirty Dirty. And people were like, "Oh, you're gonna play some blues?" And it's like, no, not really. I mean, But it was, I guess it was a few years after I moved up here. Who was it? His name's slipping my mind right now. He's an old white blues musician up here in Vancouver. He's also an actor. He's been in a bunch of TV shows they've filmed up here. Like, his name will come to me in a bit, but he did a Mississippi Sheiks album, like a tribute album to the Mississippi Sheiks. And I got a hold of that album one day, and I was looking into it, and I was like, "Oh, these guys are from Bolton." And I was like, "Holy shit." And I started looking into the Mississippi Sheiks and realized that some of the songs that my papa, who grew up in Bolton as well, he'd sing me Corina Corina when I was a kid. And I was like, did he ever see these guys playing that song when he was a kid? Like I just wondered, like there was a few songs that the Sheiks wrote that he would sing to us as kids. And so that was special. And it was kind of like a boot in my butt. I was like, "Oh man, I gotta look into this," and I started looking into Charlie Patton, and it just kind of, and then I guess in 16 or 17, I went home to see my father, who was dealing with some cancer. And we took a road trip one day and ended up out at Jimmy Duck Holmes' juke joint in Bentonia. And I think that was a day that it really meeting Jimmy that day brought it back home to me, for me, like where it was like, nope, this is like something, that day that we met Jimmy in his old juke joint. Like it just, my dad even joked when we left there that day. He was like, it's kind of funny, we basically just drove all around Mississippi and to get back here to Jimmy's place, which is about 15 miles from where I grew up, my home. And he's like, it's kind of like you going up into Canada and having to go up to Canada to find out that you want to make music that's from Mississippi. And we laughed about that because it's kind of true. You go around the world to realize that, everything's right there at home.
This is not exactly the same thing, but I grew up in a town that was that's right on Lake Michigan, and I was within, a few minutes of a beautiful beach my entire life, pretty much. And of course, I got out of high school and wanted to get the hell out of town. And then at some point I was like, wait a second, people pay to go on vacation where I lived. What am I doing? So yeah, you almost got to make that mistake before you can appreciate it.
That's it. No, that's it. That's it.
So you mentioned this trip to check out Jimmy Duck Holmes. What led to that, to you going out there to see him?
Well, I had always known about his juke joint. Like I say, it's in a little small town that it's not far from where I grew up. The home that's been in my family, for ever since they forced indigenous people out, I guess, is when my family ended up going to Mississippi. It was in the early 1800s or late 1700s. I can't remember, but my family came over and they got a big chunk of land kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and it's not too far from Bentonia as the crow flies. Now, I had gone home and 17. My dad, he's got some leukemia, and I got a call and they were like, hey, we found a tumor and we can't operate on it. You need to come home. And so I jumped on a plane, went home, and spent a few weeks with my dad there. And one of those days we're like, hey, you know, I've never been up to Clarksdale. Let's ride up there and get some catfish and ribs and, you know, just spend a day riding around the Delta. And, you know, because it was just kind of, that whole blues thing was really itching me, you know, and I hadn't got into it at that point. This was late 2016, early 2017. And so we rode up into Clarksdale and had some lunch, and then we rode east over into Indianola where they got the B.B. King Museum, and then south on 49 all the way back down into Yazoo City, and then through Bentonia. Then you hit a country road and you end up back at my home. Well, I said, well, come on, let's go look at this juke joint in Bentonia. Apparently it's where a bunch of old legends have played. And it's right on the railroad track, and there's this beautiful old rundown cotton gin right beside the juke joint. And so we pulled up in there and we stopped, and that day the front door was open. And I said, well, I gotta peek my head in here and see what's going on. You know, I've never been in. And so I stuck my head in, and Jimmy was behind the counter, and he's, you know, his favorite thing to tell you when you come in is, I'm the one you're looking for. And, and I said, do you play music? And he was like, yeah. I said, you know, would you play me a song? And it was just me and my dad in there, and he played the most haunting rendition of Devil Got My Woman. And I mean, it floored me. Like, and I something happened to me that day. I went home, I grabbed my guitar, I went back to Bentonia. I was like, you know, Mr. Holmes, I play guitar, you know. And, you know, will you sign my guitar? He signed the guitar. He said, well, show me some of what you play. And I showed him. And so then he just started teaching me. And that summer he came up to Vancouver to do a festival, and I got to, you know, chauffeur him around. And I mean, we spent a week together. And by the time he left, it was like an old friend was leaving. I mean, and it's been that way ever since. Like I go see him every time I go home, and he's always teaching me, you know, always, even if it's not about music, which is not really about these days. He's, you know, giving me some kind of pointers on life, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. You go there as a, you know, as someone interested and become friends with him and learn from him. I mean, how much does that time inform your music now?
All of it. Every bit of it. I mean, I don't ever play in an open tuning. I mean, in a standard tuning anymore. I'm always in an open tuning. Everything that we write, everything that we record nowadays is rooted in the Bentonia style of the Delta blues or the hill country. You know, a lot of those guys come down and play at Jimmy's place for the festivals and whatnot. And a few years we've been really inspired, and we sat in to play with R.L. Boyce, who he just passed away, I think in August or September of this last year. And we had played out at Bentonia with him, and he's from up in Como, Mississippi, where Jesse May Hemphill was from. And he played with, you know, Burnside. And, you know, I mean, it's just the lineage there is crazy. And it is just, it's electric when some of these people start to play. Like, it blows me away. Like, it really does. And it's so simple in some ways. Like, you know, if you've been doing it a while, it seems to be very simple, but when you kind of start to do it, you're like, it's very elusive.
Yeah, you know, blues it's one of those genres that, you know, I think your experience is probably similar to a lot, you know, where at this point we're not raised with a lot of blues. I mean, there's definitely some blues influence on some pop music and that sort of a thing, but you almost have to have someone in your life or something in your life that takes you to it. I mean, I didn't listen to much in the way of blues or, I don't think I could have named anyone besides BB King until there was a restaurant here that the owner was a blues fan and out of his own pocket would basically just book these bands to play on Friday nights. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like I
Wow.
want to do this all the time, and so that's where my love came from. But yeah, you almost have to have that kind of experience to appreciate it. So
100%. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do you see that in your Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, or else you're like, I mean, before that, it was like, I'm like looking at tablature and trying to, decipher, songs, but it's so different when somebody, I mean, like he'll actually grab my fingers and he'll like this, no, this one goes right here, and it's like you learn by doing. And a lot of the learning in when you're with him, you're learning because you're playing live with him in front of people, like, because that's when money's being made is when people are listening, right? And so it's like if people are here, we need to be playing. And so like that was another eye opener for me is like, yeah, like this is how he makes his living, you know. It's not just a hobby for him.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds a little like trial by fire there, though. Jumping
I
right
it
in
was
with the audience.
exactly. That's what it feels like. I remember this last summer in Bentonia, like RL saw me behind the stage and he was finishing up his set and I was about to go on and he was like, "Well, get up here and play with me." And I was like, "RL, I can't hang with you, man." Like, and he goes and he leaned over my ears and he's like, "I'm gonna show you how." And I didn't play much with him. If I'm being totally honest with you, I did the best I could. I tried to hit a lick here or there, but he wanted to show me something. Like that was important to him. And he was not going to take no for an answer. He didn't care if I didn't know how to play. That wasn't the point. The point was for him to teach me something. You know what I mean?
That's great. That's great. Yeah. There's something about the spirit of that those generations of blues players. And I mean, I think you touched on it earlier too, because you kind of mentioned how, you know, it's just sort of like built into them. There was a drummer up from my region, South Bend, by the name of Billy Sticks Nicks, and he passed a few years back, unfortunately. But I remember seeing him play up into his 80s, and you'd see him.
Wow.
He's this little. I mean, he almost looks like this feeble kind of guy, and then he'd sit down at that drum kit, and he became 19 years old. And
Wow.
I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. He just something turned on and he was just who he was in that moment.
I love it. I love it. I mean, if you get a chance, go look at some of Leo Bud Welch's live performances. Like he's so old, but man, when he starts playing, oh my God. Like it's just like he said. It's like he's 19 again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so music does that. It's incredible the way that music, my grandmother, she was losing her mind, before she died last year. But man, you play her a song and something switch in her head. Like it's crazy. It blows me away.
Yeah, it really does tap into something, deeper than just the conscious mind. I mean, whether you're, listening or playing or dancing, when we connect to music, there's something almost, magic that happens there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Like a friend of mine's father passed away last year, and he went through a stage where he could not, like he couldn't remember things, like he couldn't. But man, if you started to play a song on the piano, or sorry, if you set him at a piano, he could play you the most beautiful music, and he could sing, and he could kind of converse while he was, like it's like the music switched something in his brain that allowed him to not suffer from whatever it was he was suffering from. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it,
yeah. Or there's some deeper wiring there that just bypasses all that.
100%, 100%. Yeah.
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 So, I mentioned a little earlier kind of that blues wasn't a music that was common, at least, when I was growing up. But what are you seeing with your fan base now? I mean, given the way the internet works musically now, it seems like everyone's discovering things that they maybe wouldn't have encountered before because it's all so much available to them, whether it's old, new,
Yeah.
or just various styles. So are you seeing an expansion in your fan base because of that, or?
Yeah, 100%. Like, in fact, when we released the Dirty South Blues album in 2019, I remember reaching out. Like, before then, I'd just been doing kind of Southern rock and Americana, kind of alt country. And I remember I reached out to the Blues Foundation and I was like, hey, I'm from Mississippi. I'm releasing this album. I was being mentored by, Jimmy Duck Holmes, and just thought I'd reach out to see if you had any pointers. And she was like, the only thing I can tell you is that the blues is one of the most listener supported genres out there. And I mean, I sell CDs now. Like, I've been running out of CDs and having to make more CDs. And, like, just releasing this last album, Pandora Sessions. I mean, that's our 11th album, our 5th since Dirty South Blues. And every album we've released since Dirty South Blues, we've been like, oh, this is great. This is our favorite shit. This is the best one we've done yet. And then we released this Pandora Sessions record just a few months back. And when we recorded it, I only had like 3 or 4 songs written on the record. We just started playing and jamming, and the songs just come out just kind of like they do in Bentonia. And that's what we saw with Jimmy and RL. Like, they don't write anything down. Like, they just sing and play. And the song that comes from, that whatever they're playing, like, that's the song they're singing. So Jimmy never plays Catfish the same way twice. He never plays Train the same way twice. I mean, it's always a little bit different, and so that's what we were trying to capture with this Pandora Sessions. And I mean, like, this album, in the 3 months since it's been released, is already number 4 in our albums on our Bandcamp page, just in the number of listens. It's like, it's being listened to. The fans, like the one video on YouTube with over 100,000 views, just blows me away. I mean, like, something's happening. And I think what it is, this is what my drummer and I think, is it's a more intuitive music. It's a music that is traditionally and historically kind of been made from some sort of suffering or spiritual kind of quest, or looking for some type of relief or something. And I think it just, country music's the same way. Rock music's the same. I mean, but something about the blues, just especially this real obscure style of blues that hangs on one chord for a whole song, as opposed to doing the turnarounds and the 8 or 12 bar. It just kind of sits on one chord. That's what the hill country and the Bentonia style have been about. And man, it's just something about it is eerie, and people dig that eeriness. Like, they dig that fucking I don't know what it is, man, but it's,
yeah. Well, it's
100%.
There's like I'm a fan of every genre of music you could name, and so I love something that's, I can love music that's ultra produced, but there's something to be said for something that's so simple and kind of naked and open, where you're just I don't know, it opens up a different side of things, I think.
It really does. Agreed, 100%. Like, I was listening to, like, on the way this morning, I was listening to Tom Petty's Wildflowers album, and I just watched a documentary on them recording that. And I mean, it's a great album, like, it's so cool. It was one of those albums that was, like, very pivotal for me as a teenager, especially when I found pot. Like, I remember, like, I think I found pot in that album on the same day. It was like, whoa.
That's a good day.
Yeah, it was a really good day. And but like, don't get me wrong, I love the album, but you listen to that album and you listen to Leo Bud Welch's I Don't Prefer No Blues album, two totally different things. I mean, both are kind of rocky, but man, like one is got a whole band and a big studio, producers and the whole 9 yards, and the other one's a guy with a guitar and a woman with a drum set, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's the things that you can do with music. I was actually thinking about this driving over here, and this thought came to mind that music is just sort of beautiful noise. And beauty's in the mind of the beholder. So you can kind of, I mean, there's so many different ways to make it and to do it and to reach people and touch their hearts and everything, and yeah.
Ours,
So
I think ours has been a process of deduction over the last decade, and it's even been like we either have been like we've gotten rid of band members, like our bass player basically had to leave the band 2 years ago because he got in a bad car wreck and concussion. And so it kind of forced me and my drummer. It's like, oh, we want to keep this thing going. So and then that's, we had been really inspired by a lot of these kind of drum and guitar blues duos coming out of the Delta. And we just we said, okay, well, we've been pulling, chords out of songs. So now our bass player can't play, and our other guy that worked with us forever moved back over to Toronto. And so now it's the two of us. And so that kind of process of deduction, I think, as an artist, it leads to a more, it can lead, I think, to a more honest sound or creation or work of art. And I think that's lent itself well to this kind of obscure style of the Delta blues.
Yeah. So bringing it there, describe for me a little bit this Bentonia style. What defines that versus other forms of blues?
So the Bentonia style was kind of founded in, I guess, let's see, you've heard, of Skip James. Skip James was from Bentonia. Skip James learned from an old man named Henry Stuckey. Henry Stuckey was a musician. There's no recorded songs of his, no known recorded songs of his. He's from Bentonia. He was in, I think, World War One, and World War One or two. I think it was one. But he met some guys on his tours that played in a minor tuning, and I think they were from either Africa or the Caribbean, if I'm not mistaken. And he brought that tuning back home with him when he was really intrigued by it. And so that's kind of what he came back home and he was playing in this open minor tuning. And I think Skip James was the one that kind of made it, so kind of popular in a way. That's why his songs kind of sound a little bit different than, you say, B.B. King songs or something. Like there's this minor tonal element to it. And then there's also, that kind of always singing about the devil or the train. The train goes right through Bentonia. Like you can never go to Bentonia and not hear the train 4 or 5 times. Like I think that's why so many songs on my last album are about trains. But the Bentonia style originated from Henry Stuckey, bringing that minor tuning back to his little community and then starting to teach people like Skip James and Jack Owens, Cornelius Bright. There was another, Lonzo Burks was out of Flora, about 10 miles away from Bentonia. And, the Bentonia Blues Festival, it's been going on for, 50 years. And the juke joint there, the Blue Front Cafe, it was owned by Jimmy's mama and daddy before. And when they owned it, it was a cafe that ran 24 hours a day because it sat beside the cotton gin, and the cotton gin also went 24 hours a day. And so people would come over for, a drink or, a meal during shift change or a lunch break or something like that. But there was always people playing music there. Another thing that sets the Bentonia style apart from, say, your other kind of Delta blues is the kind of, it all hangs on one chord, it seems to. Like, there's not as many turnarounds. So B.B. King was always playing like 12-bar blues, and you always had a certain kind of way the song is set up structurally, and you don't see that a lot in the Bentonia style. So there's subtle differences, but those subtle differences make it sound like a very unique style of the blues.
So the festival then, does that focus strictly on that style? Is there any room for other things coming in there? Like, what does that look like?
Oh yeah, no. It's the festival. They try to bring in people from all over, and so, they'll, let's see. That's where I saw Leo Bud Welch play first, and I think he's from northern Mississippi, but he plays a more electric style of blues that he kind of, it's crazy, like he was a preacher for his whole life, and he played this electric style of blues in his church, and then somebody found him and they were like, dude, like, this is incredible. And it is incredible. Like, it's they bring down like there's a lot of Delta blues artists that come and play, and it's not in the Bentonia style per se, but that's the cool thing, because as soon as people show up, it's just, Jimmy's over there trying to show somebody something, I mean, it's very much like he talked about, baptism by fire. It's like when you come out there, you coming out to learn something. And I love that about Jimmy. I saw him playing. He played up here one summer, and he sat down with, who was that fella? That guy's famous. And Jimmy sat down there with him and just started showing him he's like, well, this is how I do it. Like, you do it wrong. This is how I do it. And the guy he wasn't asking for a lesson, but that's just the way Jimmy is, And I love that, there's a innocence to it that I think is Jimmy just wants to teach. Like, he knows that he's not going to be around long. And, Jack Owens actually came to Jimmy, and Jack Owens said, hey, look, I'm not going to live forever. So you need to start playing and recording and teaching other people this style of music. And right now, I think he's the last one.
That's that is one of those things. It's like everything with the older generations, whether it be those skills or the stories, that's the kind of thing we've got to get down so we don't lose it to the next generation,
Exactly. Yeah.
So, when did you actually start playing music? I know you weren't playing blues the whole time, but when did you pick up a guitar or whatever else and get into that?
Like I said, I was always infatuated with music. And I think whenever the Nevermind album came out, I can't remember what year that was. It was in the 90s.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I remember my mom bought me this black electric guitar, and I think I learned the riff to Smells Like Teen Spirit, put it down, and that was it. And then it was a few years later that I needed to audit a class at a community college and for the hours or something. And so I took this classical guitar class and bought an acoustic guitar. And when I was in that class, somebody gave me a Neil Young tablature book for the Decade albums. And I picked up those tapes, and man, I just quit going to that class, and I started singing and playing Neil Young. That was it. That was all she wrote. And from there, it was, Neil Young, Ryan Adams, The Dead, anything. Like, just, man, I mean, I'm like you. I'm anything. I love music, country music. I love Southern rap. Like that's my thing right now is like anything rap out of the South is just, I love it. I just love it.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that's kind of the way it started with me. And I wrote songs and kind of played, through college, but it wasn't until I moved to Canada that I really I met some songwriters that were recording albums, and they hooked me up with a producer that they were working with, and that was all she wrote. I made my first album in 2009, and 2010 made another one, 2015, and then since then it's just been, it's gotten a lot easier. Like I keep a pretty tight team of people that can record, and cinematographers, and people that make videos, and photographers, and it's like a core group of us. And I mean, as soon as we get the recordings down, I mean, we can get the videos and everything else done pretty quick, and we handle it in house, and there's no label involved. And it's all like everything that we do, like everything is made by us, like the covers, the photographs, like the artwork. Like it's, I love it. Like,
That's awesome. I mean, was it always that way for you as far as having it be a close-knit team, kind of, DIY style? Or did you ever dip into the other side where you had, more of the business support side of it? It's kind of fascinating, the different journeys you can take on this.
Totally. I mean, I think in the beginning, I was always really hoping to sign with a label or something, and it definitely met with a bunch of them. And but they're always like, how many fans you got? What kind of pull can you bring to a show? And I'm like, fuck, I don't know, but I write songs. I mean, and so it just became one of those things where like we just kept looking for ways that we could make the music by ourselves. And so my drummer, Jay, he's been a big part of that. Like he and I have been together the longest. He's been with me for, I think 16 years now. He's an incredible drummer, but he's also an artist and just an incredible, thinker and critiquer. And so he's basically this last album, like we got the idea to do it. He brought in all the mics, he recorded the whole thing. He took the photographs for the album, he mixed it and mastered it. Like, and he made the videos. Like, it's just been a kind of, what do they call it? It's just a kind of project of we just love doing it,
like a passion project. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, that's it. It's just a passion project. But lately in the last year or two, we've gotten a lot more placements with TV and film. In fact, we just got a song on the new Reacher series, and that was huge. So I think that's kind of what we're doing now, is just planning on recording good songs and trying to get those placed on TV and film.
Yeah, I saw that you had a few TV credits, song placements. How does that come about? What's that like?
I wish I knew. I'd have more. There's one music supervisor here in Vancouver, Natasha Dupre, and she's placed a few of our songs in some shows. We've been in Snowpiercer. We got one placement at Resident Alien. We got this Reacher placement. And then there's a film production company here in town that has been using our music in a lot of Lifetime movies and whatnot. So it's really just, I've just been trying to reach out and work whatever angle I can with, anybody that'll, respond to an email or, like it's,
sure,
but
yeah.
the more placements you get, the easier it is to reach out. In fact, I reached out to the woman that places music for Yellowstone, and, just kind of like, and I even told her in the email, I was like, this is my Hail Mary pass. And she was she like laughed, and she messaged me back the next day, and she's like, I think one of my friends used your song on their Resident Alien show. And I was like, holy shit. Like, and I think that's just the way it works, like you just try to get a foot in the door and then you try to work it open, and That's kind of what we've been doing.
That's amazing. And, yeah, you just got to go for it sometimes. I mean, I started this show, in a bedroom in this tiny little apartment. And, a few times along the road, I just sort of was like, you know what? I'm going to try this. And the worst thing they can do is say no, reaching out for potential guests. Or
Yeah.
more likely, I'm just not going to hear from them. And I've had some luck. I mean, I've interviewed my favorite musician of all time twice on this show. I've had a couple of bigger names on this show. Everyone out there, just you take your shot. You never know. You never know.
That's it. 100%. Like, that's it, man. And I think people like people that are excited about what they're doing. And another thing is, if somebody's not into what I'm doing, like, that's totally cool. Like, I'm just going to look for the next person that is,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That seems kind of like a life lesson there. Have you learned anything else, either like out there on the road or just making music that maybe applies to life in general?
Well, I'm always trying to learn. I know one time I see in 19, I got a cancer diagnosis, and I remember I called Jimmy and I told him about it. I was like, man, yeah, they're gonna have to do some stuff. I gotta have a surgery, and then he was real quiet, and he goes, well, you ain't dead yet. And I was like, what? And he was right, though. He was like, you can still write a song. You can still play a song. You know what? Like, he's just, and what that tells me is this about perspective, and here is this man who has given me one of the most beautiful gifts he could give me by showing me and teaching me his style of music. And then on top of that, when he told me that, I mean, like, that was more powerful, I think, than him teaching me what he's taught me. It was just like, it was a real slap in the face, because I was down. I was like, holy shit, and to be honest, the surgery almost killed me. Like, I almost died and on the surgery table. And so, like, thinking back to him telling me, like, you ain't dead yet, I think about that all the time, man. I'm just like, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how many curveballs life throws you, it's like, fuck, man, if we can still keep moving forward, we got a chance,
That is amazing life advice right there.
It's so simple, but it's powerful.
Yeah. It makes me think of, are you familiar with the Drive-By Truckers?
Favorite band in the world, buddy.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I've been seeing them. I saw them the first time in '98 in Athens, Georgia.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I love those guys. They're definitely on my list of dream interviews. But they had that song. I'm trying to think of what the name of it is, what it's called, but it's the tribute to the friend who died of, I believe it was HIV. And the chorus is like, I can't die now because I got another show to do. And it's just him about continuing to do his shows while he's sick. You know that one I'm talking about?
I know exactly the one you're talking about. Yeah, that was, I can't remember the name of that guy, but I have heard them talk about his story. And that song I remember listening to that song a lot when I got that cancer diagnosis. Like that song in particular being powerful to me, it's like, yeah, like, there you go. A guy that's, on his way out, that's still like, no, I got another show to do, and it's like, oh, man. Ooh, bro, you gave me chills right there. I thought about that song in a bit.
Also, a side note to this, and I can't wait till he hears this, but so Charles Nelson, he's a good friend of mine, but we run with this friend group, and somewhere some years ago, this joke started about my love for Drive-By Truckers, and it's kind of this thing of like, oh, you've heard of that band Drive-By Truckers, and they're talking to me because, so when he hears this, that you are also a Truckers fan, I can't wait to rub it in his face. So.
Oh, man. Look, it was funny. When I went to Auburn University, there was a man there named John Bowman, and John, hey, Lisa, he kind of took me under his wing when I moved to Auburn, and I had, because it was my first time moving away from home, and I had recently sobered up, gotten out of a treatment center, and I was, and I met this man in a meeting. He's dead now, so I guess I can't break his anonymity, but I met him in a meeting. He took me under his wing. We hung out a lot, and I got to be good friends with his daughter, Natalie. And he's just a lovely man, and such a great experience. And anyway, fast forward, 15 years later, I'm up here in Vancouver, and my office is right beside a bar that gets a lot of good bands. And I look out the window one day and I see Patterson and them walking by my office. And I was like, holy shit. So I ran outside and I was like, Patterson. And they all turned around. Patterson turned around. I was like, you know Natalie Bowman? And he's like, she's at home keeping my kids right now. And I was like, I know her and her daddy real well, and we got to talking, and ended up that Patterson had was really close friends with her daddy. And I knew this because he had always told me about knowing Patterson, and he knew Patterson's dad well, the elderhood that played bass, in Muscle Shoals.
Yeah, for sure. Legendary session player right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how he knew Patterson. So anyway, I was like, hey, Natalie Bowman? He's like, she's got my kids right now. Like, how do you know? Why are you asking me this? Yeah. And but I've actually chatted with Patterson, and he's told me some beautiful stories about their family. And, it's funny because you can't connect the dots looking forward, but looking back, it's like, wow, like I remember, John Bowman taking me up to see, we drove for hours to see a late show. Drive-By Truckers played the late set at the Nick Rocks in Birmingham, and like it was for the Southern Rock Opera Tour. I'll never forget that show. Holy shit. That place was just, it was so sweaty in there. And it was like 2 a.m. they're playing, it's like, what?
Those guys, I tell you, one of my favorite shows of all time was by them. I saw them Halloween in Chicago for it must have been the Dirty South tour. And they played on Halloween night, and they came out in costume, and that room had so much insane energy. No exaggeration. They did 5 encores. By the end of the show, they had run out of songs that they knew how to play. And so people were just lobbing songs at them from the audience, and they're like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Sure.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that band, dude. One of my favorites, hands down.
They're amazing. Well, if you ever chat with Patterson again, tell him, there's this show up here in Michigan that would love to have him on. So,
Hell yeah. I hope I get to chat with him again.
Stranger things have happened, right?
Hey, we're going to put the energy out there, brother. We're going to make it happen.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So, any other favorite stories or experiences from, life as a musician, on the road or whatever?
Oh man, I could write a book. Not as a musician, but just as a struggling person.
Can't we all, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. We're not a touring band. I write songs, and I got a couple of close friends, and we make albums and videos, and we're just gonna push this thing as far as we can go and enjoy the ride. That's about it for us.
All right. But you came down to play Bentonia, and I imagine you must get out and about up in Vancouver. Is there a scene there, or?
Oh yeah. In fact, we got a show this weekend. We'll be playing down the street from my house, and we play around town a bit here. Not a whole bunch, just because it's a lot of work that goes into the shows. And if the shows are set up like, we'll take a Live Nation show in a heartbeat, because that's all set up, and you just go play and they give you a check, and that's beautiful. I hate fucking around at a bar at 3 a.m. trying to get $100 out of an asshole bartender. and really the only place that I play when I go home is Jimmy's. And I kind of like it like that, because for me, music there's something about, the social, there's a cultural significance, I think, to the style of music that we play, a historical significance to what the blues is. And so I just always want to be learning from that. And trying to be a good ambassador to Mississippi. We don't have a lot of those these days. And so, when people hear that I'm a songwriter from Mississippi, I want them to know that I'm on the right side of what's going on these days, and I think the best way to do that is to try to learn from the elders back home. And so that's what we try to do. And so we don't really go home and tour or play around. I will go home in April, and I'm gonna go down to Alabama. I'll be playing a set for the Auburn University has a nonprofit design build school called the Rural Studio, and it's where students design really cool buildings or community projects, and they actually build them. And it's they've been doing it in a small part of Alabama for the last 30 years, and I've built a house out there and an animal shelter, and they've invited me back for their 30-year anniversary. So I'll be going down there and in the end of April to do a show, and looking forward to that. But we until things kind of hit that next level where we can go out and we know we're gonna make some money, playing music, because we're just done sleeping on couches. I just couldn't do it.
Sure.
Yeah, one day, it'll unravel how it's going to unravel.
Well, you never know, but that's the unknown future. But what's next in the meantime? I mean, what have you got planned? The album Pandora Sessions that came out a couple of months ago, and what's next on the docket?
We're just about to release a few new videos, so if you got anybody listening, definitely want to subscribe to our YouTube and our Bandcamp. That's where we're most active, but we're everywhere else. But we just want to keep writing and recording. I think right now that's pretty much kind of where our goal is. And I think anytime you do an album, it's like right before the album, you're like, oh yeah, let's record an album. And then after you record the album, you're like, holy shit, like that's done. Like, let's take a break, and I think we've done 5 or 6 albums in the last 5 years. And so we're just kind of, I think we're just going to let this one ride for a bit, but who knows?
Awesome. Well, the
most important thing we want to do is keep working the music towards TV and film, and trying to get, some bigger shows, maybe opening slots for somebody like Marcus King or something, like those guys always come through town. Like, we always get good shows. So I think it's just trying to up our game and trying to get on some of these larger shows that come through Northern Canada and the Pacific Northwest.
Awesome. Well, I wish you luck with all that. The album is great, Pandora Sessions, and we'll definitely link everyone to the Bandcamp and the YouTube and all that fun stuff in the show notes. People can be sure to check that out. And as I always say to my audience, give musicians your money. Streaming is nice to discover music, but when you find someone you like, throw some bucks their way for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We bought a little CD burner a few years back. We spent a little money on it, and but now we're able to make these really cool little handmade packages with CDs that are hand stamped and with stickers that we made in our studio. And so now we're just rolling those out. So that's exciting. And we want to do something that people can, a couple of years back, we were back home in Mississippi, and my drummer saw R.L. Boyce play, and he was like, you got any CDs for sale? And R.L.'s like, yeah, I got one. I'll meet me in my car in 10 minutes. And Jay walked out to his car 10 minutes later, and he was burning one in the trunk of his car on a little laptop, and Jay thought it was the coolest thing, man. Cause then he put it in a case, and then he drew something on the cover and signed it. And Jay still got it to this day. It was just special. And so we're like, why don't we do something like that? Where if somebody orders a CD, they're getting something that we actually handmade,
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah. That's great.
Definitely, you'll have to send me your address, and I'll send you one, man. It's like we just try to keep it fun, and
Well, that's awesome. So I definitely will do that, and yeah, I mean that's a great incentive also, because what's cooler than having a custom, custom CD made by the artist. So yeah. All right, cool. Well, did we miss anything?
I think I covered all of it. I think
I think we covered a lot of territory there in an hour. So
we
yeah,
did. I
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you so much for following up, man. Like I don't know why. The only thing I can think is I put it in my calendar here at work, and our email server went down this morning, so I think it just cleared out all of my appointments or something. Like I just looked and it wasn't there. So thank you for following up with me and
Oh yeah, not a
being
problem at
able to do
all.
this a bit later.
Yeah, no, it's not a problem at all. I mean, trust me, a couple minutes late is the least of what I've dealt with in the 10 years I've been doing this show. So
uh, right on.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I
Well,
can't wait. And once you get it up, like shoot me the link. I'll get it on all my socials, and I'll plug it a few times over the next month. And I really appreciate it, man. It's an honor to
yeah.
be on the show.
Yeah, definitely, for sure, for sure. And thanks for taking the time to come on. And it was great chatting with you. I look forward to maybe getting down to, I don't know if you're going to be at Bentonia next time it comes around, but, Chuck and I were talking about maybe checking it out together. So,
Right on, right on. I tell you what, I've been down there my whole life. I ain't never seen anything like it. I still to this day, my wife and I joke when we're out there. We're like, we can't believe that we didn't know about this.
That's amazing.
It's a great little scene. You'll really enjoy it.
Awesome. All right. Well, Robert, thank you. It was great chatting with you. And yeah, I'll keep you posted on this. And let us know here next time you got something coming down the pike. If you got a new album, new videos, and whatnot, and we'll be sure to tell our audience. So
Thank you so much, man. It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
all right, take care. Okay.
Take care of yourself too.
You have been listening to Anywhere the Needle Drops, a product of Red Chuck Productions. Be sure to keep tabs on everything going on with this show and everything else Red Chuck over at redchuckproductions.com or by following us at Red Chuck Productions on social media. Special thanks to Hero Jr. for our theme music. You can check them out, listen to their songs, and see where they're going to be over at herojrmusic.com. That's HEROJRMUSIC.com. Also, special thanks to Paul Clemson, our sound engineer and producer. And while you're at it, make sure you visit the websites and band camps and shows of all of our guests. If you want local music, if you want independent music, or any kind of art, you've got to support them. So give musicians and artists your money. We will see you at the next episode. Until then, here's to life. 'Cause would I